National Bureau of Statistics have given a report for the year 2024 that in the first quarter of the year, we have seen a trade surplus, meaning that we are seeing a 79% rise in our trade and then also a 6.52 trillion naira gain for the first quarter of 2024. You are welcome to Business and Finance. I am Rachel Tanzi. Now, moving on to the breakdown of what this means year on year, what we have seen for the year 2023, and then the difference for the year 2024, and then what it will be meaning for the future of Nigeria when it comes to trade. And by having a surplus, it means that our export overpass our import. That is, we have seen an increase or surge in our export activity more than what we have imported into the country, and this rise is by 79%. Now, these latest figures that have been released shows that the country recorded a positive trade balance of 6.52 trillion naira for the sixth straight quarter in first quarter, at a 79.1% increase from 3.64 trillion naira in the previous quarter. It also jumped from 20.9 billion naira on a year-on-year basis. Now, total merchandise trade in Africa's most populous nation stood at 31.8 trillion naira in the first quarter, an increase of 46.3% over the value recorded in the preceding quarter, and rose by 145.6% compared to the value recorded in the corresponding period of 2023. Now, data have revealed that export accounted for 60.3% of total trade in the reviewed quarter, with a value of 19.2 trillion naira, showing an increase of 51% compared to the value recorded in the last quarter, that is 12.7 trillion naira, and by 195.5% in the value recorded in the first quarter of 2024. Now, these are value for the last quarter of 2023. There was an increase of 195%. We're at 12.7 trillion. And now, at the first quarter of 2023, it was 6.48 trillion naira. And then now, in the first quarter of 2024, we are seeing 6.52 trillion naira. It said export trade in the first quarter was dominated by the crude oil exports, valued at 15.4 trillion naira, representing 80.8% of total exports, while the value of non-crude oil exports stood at 3.68 trillion naira, accounting for 19.20% of total exports, which non-oil products contributed 1.78 trillion naira, or 9.28% of total exports. So we are seeing that, yes, most of our revenue generated was from oil, and then we are having this oil, and we are having this export surplus, we are having this trade surplus as a result of an increased export in oil. So we're seeing oil giving us 15.4 trillion naira. That's what we have exported, and the non-oil products starting at 1.78 trillion naira. So just contributing 9.28% to this trade surplus that we have seen in the first quarter of the year. Now, imagine an economy where we are having non-oil exports superseding oil export, then we will be able to witness a surplus that is beyond 6.52 trillion naira, and where we will be having more than 9.28% from non-oil product export. Then we can be able to see a real balance of trade, where one product doesn't gulp in the much of the revenue that is being generated, but we can be able to diversify and distribute it to other products. We can look at natural resources, and we can look at finished goods, because at crude oil we are still in exporting raw materials and every other product. But when we start exporting finished products, revenue will definitely be higher than this. And it's also a call to the government to look into non-oil products so that we can be able to see a trade surplus and also a trade balance, and that we will be accounting for more than 6.52 trillion naira in the subsequent quarters of the year. Now, knowing that OPEC have started with cutting down quotas for the purpose, the sole purpose of increasing the price per barrel of crude oil. And now we are seeing that they have maintained a 1.5 million barrel per day of crude oil production for the year 2025. This cut was seen from 2023. The initial quota expected by OPEC from us is 1.8 million barrel per day. We have failed to meet this quota subsequently. However, the cut is not because we have failed to meet our quota, but because OPEC globally is working with its member state, that is other oil producing countries, to cut down supply of crude oil so that we can be able to see an increase in the price of crude oil per barrel. So yes, the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries has extended oil production cut put in place in November to put in place till November of the year 2025, with Nigeria maintaining its oil production quota at 1.5 million barrels per day. So yes, put in place in November last year to 2024. Now this means that till 2025 November, before there might be a review of that cut or a maintenance. So now looking at since November 2022, we've had oil cut production of 1.5. It's being maintained for 2024, further to 2025, and then by the end of the year, that is still at November 2025, it will be looked into for review whether this cut will continue. That is, the cut will continue, but what will be the amount for Nigeria? Are we going to stop at 1.5 million barrel per day? Will there be more cut? Will OPEC maintain it, or will they increase it? Now, oil production in Nigeria showed that production was 1.28 million barrel in April, far below the OPEC quota, and the 1.7 million barrel production projected in the 2024. So yes, the 2024 budget was made on the projection that we will be able to produce 1.7 million barrel per day of crude oil. And we can see that as at April, looking at the first quarter of the year, our production was at 1.28 million barrel per day. OPEC Plus, at the end of its 37 meeting, put the total monthly oil production quota for all member countries at 39.72 million barrels per day, comprising 24.13 million for OPEC countries and 15.59 million for non-OPEC countries. Now, OPEC also extended assessment period by the three independent sources to the end of November 2025, as I have earlier explained, to be used as guidance for 2026 reference production levels. So yes, till the end of 2025 in November, before OPEC will know, moving forward to 2026, what will be the cut for countries. Will the cut go? Will it stay? Or will it be increased? That is, the determining factor is if OPEC is able to achieve its purpose of increasing the price per barrel of crude oil. So meaning if OPEC is not able to increase what crude oil is being sold at the market per barrel, this cut may stay. If OPEC is able to achieve its goal, we can see probably an increase and the cut may go. Now, this is a long period to determine that by the end of 2025, OPEC will see if the reason for the cut in the first place was important and then have met its purpose. Now, some countries in the group, including Saudi Arabia, Russia, Iraq, United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, Kazakhstan, Algeria, and Oman, had announced voluntary cuts amounting to 1.65 million barrels per day in April 2023. So before this was put on other member states and countries, we had other countries who are high in production already putting a cut to their oil output and production on a daily process. Now, we are seeing that the IATA is commending the Central Bank of Nigeria for being able to clear trap funds. We are looking at over $830 million in trap fund, in foreign airlines trap funds. And we've seen that this has been an issue, an aviation threatening issue since the year 2023, even the years before, but it was more obvious that it could become a problem in the year 2023 if Nigeria, the federal government, was not able to clear its foreign airlines trap fund. Now, we are seeing that the new and the current administration of the Central Bank of Nigeria, looking at the Governor Cardoso, have been able to make sure that $830 million in foreign airlines trap funds have been cleared. Now, the International Air Transport Association has confirmed that the Central Bank of Nigeria has cleared foreign airlines trap funds worth $831 million from June last year to date. Yes, these have started since last year. We've seen a little bit of payment made left, right, center, and now we are seeing that over 831 million have been paid. Now, the Geneva, Switzerland-based IATA said the development had brought international airlines trap funds globally to about $1.8 billion. And we remember that Nigeria have been ranking top, because if the total has been 1.8 billion and we are seeing that we have paid over 830 billion, then we have been the number one on the table, and other countries following behind us. Now, according to IATA, from the peak of about $850 million foreign airlines funds in Nigeria last June, only $19 million is left outstanding. And the reason for this outstanding fund is for other banks or other airlines that have not been cleared completely. Now, the Director General of the IATA, Willie Walsh, announced that this in a statement. The IATA boss, however, praised the Nigerian government for their efforts in ensuring the successful repatriation of the funds by the international airlines. Now, the reason behind the $19 million remaining is due to central bank's ongoing verification of outstanding forward claims filed by the commercial banks. Yes, you remember last year when the whole clearing of the airlines trap fund started, and one of the issues that the central bank kept on talking about was verified commercial banks. And even at some point when they came out to say certain amounts have been paid, some airlines said they have not seen it. And the reason is because there are some banks that haven't been verified and need to go through certain verification process for these airlines now to be able to access their trap funds from the banks. We know, of course, that these banks don't transact directly. I mean, these airlines don't transact directly with the Central Bank of Nigeria. The Central Bank of Nigeria disburses the funds, and then our commercial banks get it to businesses. And now we are looking at the aviation business. Meanwhile, IATA also announced a significant decrease in the amount of airline funds blocked from repatriations by government. So this is also a future problem that the IATA is seeing, saying that there is a significant decrease in the amount of airline funds blocked from repatriation by government. So I believe that the government needs to also look at this, because if this repatriation is not dealt with, it means there will be more trap funds, regardless of these current trap funds being cleared. With the repatriation, if the government doesn't do anything about it, these policies precisely will make room for more trap funds in the future. So the government have to do an extra work to see that, you know what, it's not about clearing these trap funds, but about making sure that they don't become, there are no longer more trap funds in the future. Now, Walsh said the major reason for the reduction was a significant clearance of funds blocked in Nigeria. So yes, kudos to the Central Bank of Nigeria, kudos to the federal government, and then kudos to the IATA also for being patient, because we know what that meant was that some airlines would have stopped partnering with Nigeria. We saw a lot of airlines that would have withdrawn their services, and what that would mean was that the Nigerian government will no longer be generating much revenue when it comes to aviation. Seeing the fact that the Nigerian Air is yet to be active, it has been indefinitely suspended at the moment by the aviation minister. So we are depending on these foreign airlines, their activities, the revenue generated, to be able to still have revenue coming from aviation into the country. So yes, we are looking at better days ahead, hoping that certain things will be put in place to reduce how much funds get trapped for international airlines. Now, we are still looking at exports because we are seeing that exports to African countries have increased, meaning majorly our export, that is our trade activities, have been to African countries, and then we are seeing a massive increase, looking at over 77.4%, and looking at that in figures of money at 2.24 trillion naira. Now, these are reports coming from the Nigerian National Bureau of Statistics. Now, Nigeria's export to African countries maintained their upward trend of the last few years in the first quarter of the year 2024, rising by 975.88 billion naira or 77.39% to 2.24 trillion naira from 1.26 trillion naira in the last quarter, that is the fourth quarter of 2023, according to the Foreign Trade in Goods Statistics report released by the National Bureau of Statistics. Now, let's look at some comparison to numbers of the first quarter of 2023, where we are looking at 665.10 billion. It means that the country recorded a 236.21%, that is 1.57 trillion naira jump in its export to African countries in the first 3 months of the year. Now, these reports are the kind of reports that would want us to give an applaud to the Nigerian government, to the export authorities, and to the people that are in charge of making sure that trade activities is on the increase, going from 979 billion to 2.23 billion, giving us a huge margin of over a huge margin of over 1.57 trillion naira. That is huge, and just for the first quarter of 2024. And you can only imagine if this surge continues, you can only imagine what will be for the rest of the quarter of the year. Now, while the country's total export in the first quarter of 2024 were valued at 19 trillion, reflecting a 51% increase compared to 12 trillion naira in the last quarter of 2023. We are looking at 195.47% rise compared to 6 billion in the first quarter of 2023. The value of its total imports stood at 12.643 billion naira in the first quarter of 2024, representing an increase of 39.65% compared with the value recorded in the last quarter of 2023, and a rise of 95.53% from the value recorded in the corresponding quarter of 2023. Now, the report further said that the main commodities exported to African countries in the first quarter of 2024 were petroleum oils and oils obtained from bituminous mineral volume at 2.028 trillion. We are looking at 90.67% of total exports to Africa. So in all of our export activities, we are seeing oil products taking the lead. And we are looking at electrical energy, which is at 58.65 billion naira. That is 2.62%. And then we have urea, whether or not in aqueous solution, at 30.42 billion naira. That is 1.236%. Now we have cement clinkers at 12.04 billion naira. That is 0.54%. And we have flours and meals of soya beans at 9.4 billion naira. That is just 0.42%. Adding that to the top 5 products accounted for 95.61% of total exports to Africa. So we can see oil taking the lead, other solid minerals, and then we have electricity coming second, and we have other minerals coming third, and then we have food, that is flour and meals of soya beans. Now, for some reason, agriculture always make it to the list, regardless of its position. And we just have one product here, that is flours and meals of soya beans, just that of soya beans. So just imagine if we can replicate or duplicate other products and we exported, meaning agricultural cash crops, what would agriculture do? in boosting our economy and then our export. I'm looking forward to the government pondering on this and then really thinking twice about it and just replicating this percentage to like 10 different cash crops. And then eventually we will be able to see a boost in our export to not only to Africa, across Africa, but majorly that oil products are not gulping a really high percentage when it comes to our export gains. And this is how far I can go today on the show. Keep a day with me next time. Goodbye.